Hey, everyone. It's time you read the signal. You're watching Techstrong Gang. Hi, everyone. It's Alan Shimel. Welcome to Thursday on the Gang. We've got a special episode for you today. We had we've been working really hard. All the little workers, big workers, little workers at Futurum and at hard at work for months and months working on something that we really were. I know Daniel was busting to talk about it. Excuse me. But we really haven't been able to say anything until now. So we're really looking forward to talking about it. But we're going to be talking about something called Futurum Signal. Let me introduce you quickly to our gang members today as we get started. First of all, joining us from Toronto, Garima Bajpai. Out west, he's our man in Silicon Valley, John Swartz. And Futurum CEO, founder, Daniel Newman. Gang, welcome. Daniel, let's jump right into this, man. Futurum Signal. What are we talking about?
I'm glowing ear to ear. Now, first of all, anyone that knows me knows that when you say we've been working on something, we've been working on some things. There's a lot of things that we're working on here. But, I've been around this industry. I started this company 8 years ago. And from the time I started the company, I truly believed this industry was fundamentally broken. The way technology decisions have been made for the longest time have been friction laden. They've been slow. Information is often a year or 2 years old. And the inflection to change the calculus on how this all gets done really came when AI started to proliferate at scale. When we saw, how much faster tools can be developed, how much more interactive people are. We've entered an era where people would rather interact with a chatbot. People would rather talk to a generative AI LLM to get information. But we've also entered an era where we have to move incredibly fast. If you're a board of director, a CEO, IT leader, CIO right now, you are under incredible pressure from your company to make a pivot that you've never seen because you actually have never seen technology move this fast and you don't actually know how all these things are going to work. But what you know for sure is if you're a company that is in a services business, like you hear a lot of things right now about McKinsey, or you hear about, what Gartner's doing, and it takes you 15 or 16,000 people to generate a series of reports that look 2 years into the past to help people make decisions on how to spend millions or billions of dollars in the future. It's just fundamentally broken. So over the last few weeks, we've done a lot of things and made some serious announcements. Last week, depending when you're watching this, it was a week ago here in August of 2025. We partnered with G2. And for those of you that don't know G2, we became the exclusive provider of G2 Signal inside of our evaluations. And that provided over 3 million customer reviews that are now AI powered in real time. Now with our signal, what we're doing is we're combining our proprietary data, our insights, our analysis, our research, our media, our content, and we built a completely AI-powered, real-time, dynamic evaluation that instead of looking at where things are today, or even worse, where things were 1 or 2 years ago, we are looking a year into the future or more, and we are going to help those that evaluate technology and those that are making the most important decisions about their company's futures make better decisions with the best information in a platform that feels just like you're using ChatGPT. And so it's a win for everybody in this industry, and it's in market starting on August 20th. So this isn't some vaporware. This isn't even as bad as when I announced Futurum AI 2 years ago and we were trying to pilot this thing. We announced it, we saw it coming, we put our heads down, we did the work, and you out there, the customers, the vendors, the implementers, and the executives are going to be the beneficiaries, and that couldn't be more exciting.
Absolutely. I'm going to jump in, and then Garima or John, feel free. So, Daniel, I just published an article this morning about the ever-increasing complexity of IT, right? And there are plenty of studies, as you said, old school studies, old style studies that look at what's been going on the last 6 months, 9 months, year, 2 years. But it's clear that whether it's entropy or something else, there's laws of physics at play. IT is becoming more complex. And we can look at AI as something that can help solve that complexity or something that contributes to that complexity. It sounds to me like you're saying Signal helps solve that complexity.
I mean, you're in this business, right? I mean, we're partners. We work in the business. You're very dedicated in the security, DevOps, and AI space. You work with lots of small companies, startup companies that are trying to break through and enter. First of all, you would agree with me, right, that AI has probably been the most revolutionary and the most level setting in terms of giving companies that have a lot less size and a lot less scale the opportunity to build things that the market can desire, right? Even like an OpenAI, right? The fact that they were able to even come in and compete with a Google, with a Microsoft, or in some cases, even their technology is so good it supported a Microsoft that they're able to, is a sign of the positive disruption, but it's also a sign of the speed that's actually putting legacy businesses at risk. So over the last few weeks, you heard me mention it before, you saw articles come out. Bloomberg reached out to me and asked me about AI sensitive businesses and their disruption. We saw companies, including those in our industry, like I said, those that are heavily consultant and persona based organizations, see their stocks drop 30 or 40%. And by the way, Alan, it's not just services companies. We saw SaaS companies, because we all know that AI is eating software. And so the fact of the matter is that entire industries are being upended. And I always like to say, slow it first, then all at once. So for the last 2 years, I've been kind of pulling the alarm. But just like in The Big Short, if anybody's seen that movie, being early can also be the same thing as being wrong. When you get too early on the trade. So for 2 years, everybody, I'm sitting there, I'm screaming. I'm like, AI is going to change this business. It's going to change it. And everyone's like, it's fine. Nothing's changed. Earnings are great. Service businesses are booming. And by the way, a lot of a lot of companies that can support AI consulting have done quite well. You look at IBM, their IT consulting business completely went away, but their AI consulting business exploded, right? But at some point, this stuff becomes more and more self-actualizing. It becomes more autonomous, and the companies can move a lot faster with a lot less bodies. So we have to build something that can move as fast as the way people want information. That's not done with 6 months of meetings and inquiries and forms that need to be filled out. This happens when you can take the vast corpus of information that's available in the markets. We take the everyday interactions, the media, the press, the data, companies' own releases, voice of customer data, and we're able to put all that together and actually give very realistic, highly tuned insights as to where the market is going, the trend lines, the buying decision data, the market size data. We can put all that together and we can basically make some assessments. And in an era, and you've heard me say this all, or at least you have, Alan, in an era where data and information has largely become commoditized, the ability to provide knowledge and wisdom, and I think McKinsey put that out there, with some level of empathy, my little add to that, knowledge, wisdom with empathy is going to win the day. And the more we can make it seamless, in the way that we interact with our commerce every day, the way we interact with the information sourcing every day, is going to enable us to deliver what the market has failed to do. So I believe the companies that we compete with absolutely have the chance to go after this. I think companies like Gartner have an amazing corpus of data. They have an amazing access to their customers, but they're also going to have to make meaningful decisions of how they scale their company. They can't ask you to have 10 meetings with 20 different analysts that are focused on one tiny sliver of the market. They're going to need to figure out a way to right-size the business, to make all that information useful and deliver it in a way that's modernized. We can't keep asking people to have all these meetings and all these face-to-faces and attend all these events. And by the way, we do all this stuff. So it's self-disruption. I'm not sitting here saying we don't have to disrupt ourselves. I'm just saying being a little smaller, having a little smaller fleet of people and being a little more platform-centric allows us to be nimble and allows us to go fast. And this is absolutely what I believe the right decision of how to go forward looks like.
If I can just jump in for a second. Yeah. So this is kind of what from a journalism prism, this is one of my conundrums, or has been for years. AI is never been faster. Speed is everything in this era. And as a reporter for years, I've struggled with getting market research reports that I know were obsolete or almost outdated because they were based on something that happened 3 months or 6 months ago. So the idea or the concept of this to me is very useful. So I just wanted to throw that in because for me it's essential. And having worked with Daniel as a reporter source for years, this is something I think that's been long overdue.
Absolutely. Daniel, I've got two comments, questions. And Garima, John, you could jump in on these as well. Number one, you mentioned Techstrong. Most of our customers, not necessarily people watching this, but our sponsors are startup companies. I've been a startup founder multiple times. Traditionally, analysts are expensive, right? We all had to pay the kind of blood money or whatever you want to call it, the ransom, right, to get in front of some analyst and maybe get into a Magic Quadrant or what. And I'm not just singling out Gartner, but for many of us, Gartner was the first and only analyst we would pay. But we always felt like the good stuff was a little out of our reach. It was just too expensive. It was a big boys game, right? It was for the IBMs of the world. Is Signal a equalizer? Is Signal a democracy bringer to bringing this kind of analysis to companies large and small?
We see, there's two sides of this. So we still think in a world where the information is so easily created with AI and the data is so easily abstracted, that influence and attention will be the currency of which most startups and technology companies are going to need to invest. Meaning, how do you stand out when it's even harder to stand out? So we do believe that what made that pricing asymmetry so significant was there was a time when that was the only way to be seen. Meaning you wanted to be seen in lights next to these other companies that were considered leaders and established to just put your name in the conversation. Okay. So we are absolutely building our product and platform to provide more access, to provide levels of entry levels. We've got a emerging vendors category where vendors will be able to be seen, and then we will have sub reports and assets that will be available for those companies that got mentioned. Maybe didn't quite hit our signal entirely. But we also are building a platform and an AI-based subscription service at Futurum that allows those smaller vendors to get access at a smaller level, but an entry level that's actually affordable and achievable for these smaller companies. And I'm really excited about that because, we do believe that a lot of these smaller companies, they're looking for a little visibility. They're looking for a Techstrong, an article on DevOps.com. They're looking for maybe a mention on a podcast that one of our team members do, or this show itself. And so working with us, we don't only do just the research, just the data, just the analysis, just the evaluation, but of course we got this whole plethora of media events. We got field days, we got 6.5, we've got testing labs and assessments, we've got Techstrong, we've got all these places become accessible to our vendors. So we absolutely believe that the longer tail is important, that we provide optionality and programs, products, platforms, and subscriptions for these smaller vendors. And the big thing to remember, Alan, and you've been around long enough to know this, is some of these vendors start small and they become very, very large. And so it's quite nice when you're there and you were there in the beginning when they were growing and coming up, and you were there to give them advice. You were there to help. You were there to give access to meaningful information, important signal that they're going to use and carry into their growth phase. Because I certainly believe that the companies that are the biggest today won't all be the biggest companies in the future. It's been the truth for hundreds of years. This has continued to happen. The only thing that's moving faster is disruption. So the period of time in which leaders stay leaders, in most cases, are shorter. Except maybe the Mag 7, because when you're worth $4 trillion, it's going to take quite a long time for that far to fade. But you are seeing a lot of big established technology companies that are kind of falling down the ladder, companies that absolutely owned the SaaS era, companies that absolutely owned the software and infrastructure eras that are now having to take back seats to the companies that came up, the companies that disrupted. And so, we want to be there to help those companies stay on top. And we also want to be there to help the new companies rise. And so I think this is just one part. And by the way, the signal is just one thing of many more that we're going to be doing that is going to continue to change this industry. I don't make those kinds of promises lightly. I expect that the things that we're going to do in the coming weeks and months will continue to send meaningful vibes to the industry about what they can look forward to in the future.
All right. Hey, I know you got to get out of here at top of the hour, but August 20th is the date, right?
August 20th. Hopefully you guys will share a little more info in the show notes. Send a link, people that want to learn more. We would love to, hear from y'all. Anyone that's out there knows you can find me on X. My little tags down below. I'm not hiding. My opinions aren't hiding either. You can find them all over the internet. And I'm excited to continue to work with the industry, bring great empathy, great humility, and continue to make this industry super relevant in a future that will be powered by AI and technology.
So we actually have a post up on Techstrong.ai that I wrote that has a bunch of information, even a sneak peek of one graphic of what this looks like. But you can check it out there. Daniel, hey man, thanks. I think one last thought I want to leave our audience with. This is a momentous moment, I think, in the consulting analyst industry because it moves it from a services to a product. And you didn't mention it, Daniel, but I feel really that's an important distinction, right? Because services means it's like tied into a human, how many humans you have working at it, and you just got to throw more humans at it. When you have a product, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I think my parting words are, we were a 90% services company with 10% products, and I see us quickly driving towards a 80% platform company with 20% value-added services. And I think that's where you want to be right now. I don't think you want to be a heavily services-oriented company that just grows on headcount. I think you have to be thinking about how to scale because, we've left this is the greatest parallel I'll give you, but in SaaS, it was always user-based. But in the era of AI, it's going to be token-based. And so when a company can be 1,000 times more productive with 10% of the headcounts, you're going to want to charge on tokens, on outputs, and on outcomes, not on seats. And so every business has to think about how to adjust for that. And so, and one thing I'll say is, because, I talk about great empathy, but is like when it comes to humans, I mean, humans are going to be incredibly important in this transition. But I do very much look at it through the lens of Pareto. The 80-20 rule is the 20% that are incredibly important and incremental and exponential to their businesses will only become more important in this era. And that's why I genuinely recommend everybody out there, learn to make AI your business partner. Make it your partner. It is a super accelerator of your skills. You can go faster in everything you do. And so 10x yourself and you will be invaluable to the organization. And you will make yourself part of this incredible journey ahead.
Absolutely. Hey, Daniel, we're going to let you run. Futurum Signal, check it out. We're going to take a break here on The Gang. We're going to come back and talk about, is Perplexity buying Chrome? Why? Stay tuned. You're watching Techstrong Gang.
Discover Techstrong Group, the epicenter of tech innovation. We're your go-to for reaching IT leaders and practitioners worldwide. Our secret? Impactful content that sparks awareness, engagement, and top-quality leads. With us, you'll access editorial websites, streaming videos, virtual events, custom content, analyst research, and more. Join our satisfied clients. Let's revolutionize your tech journey. Contact us today and tell your story to the world in the most powerful way with Techstrong Group.
Hey folks, we're back and we're talking about this Perplexity bid to buy Google Chrome for $34.5 billion reportedly. Now, no one seems to know if this is a serious thing or if it's just some sort of PR stunt, but John, you're out in the valley. What are they saying?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's a PR stunt. This idea, this concept of Perplexity spending twice its valuation to acquire Chrome at a time when the federal antitrust litigation against Alphabet could force a divestiture of the browser, seems like a play for PR. Remember, this is the same company, Perplexity, back in January, that proposed a bid to merge itself with TikTok US. Also a victim of U.S. concerns over TikTok's Chinese ownership. So we have the same situation 6 months later, 7 months later. The idea of Perplexity buying Chrome was characterized even in the journal story as a long shot. The company insists it's lined up several investors and can do it. The guest we just had, Daniel Newman, I asked him about this when it was breaking, and he said there is, quote, a 0% chance Google spins Chrome to Perplexity. I would suggest is that Perplexity actually itself might end up being acquired either by Apple or Meta. Meta took a look at them before they went to scale AI. So Perplexity actually might be in play more than anything else. This is a very bizarre story. It was almost like a trial balloon. It was almost like a play for PR. I just find myself, as Mike said in our show notes, this is a very perplexing situation.
Perplexing and perplexity, huh? What a revolting development. But let me take a contrary position. I don't think this was just a PR stunt. I think Perplexity, first of all, is on to something that, hey, when it's almost like a fire sale, right? When companies have to react to government regulatory actions, TikTok must be sold. We can't sell CPUs to China. Oh, we can if we pay them. We got to spin off the browser. We got to charge for the AV. It's a distressed buyer, right? It's a distressed sale. Excuse me, so they're looking to scoop up, and $35 billion may be cheap for a browser that controls, I think, 60 or 70% of the market or something like that. On top of that, there's a couple of other things. Perplexity would get access to oodles and pettas and whatever's after pettas and petters and of data. I think, I read an interesting article or a LinkedIn post by Reuven Cohen. I don't know if any of you guys follow Reuven. Reuven was one of the leaders in cloud. Garima, you're shaking your head. Yeah.
Hello, Canadian.
Yeah. And yes, he's a fellow Canadian. Brilliant guy. Reuven looked at the GPT-5. And it does something, it's definitely an improvement somewhat over 4. But he said the problem that the AI, the frontier model guys have, they've run out of data. They've scraped the internet clean to the best that they can. And in order to continue to make the kind of growth and improvements and leaps and bounds that we've seen up to now, they need fresh data. It could be synthetic data, but we don't know how good that's going to be and how much of it can you generate. But I would imagine getting access to the kind of data you could get to from Chrome is going to fuel the next iterations, the next models that they build their AIs on. And that alone may be worth that kind of money, right?
Oh, on the surface, no, it all makes total sense. The motivation is clearly there. I just don't think they have the tools necessary to do it. And by the way, OpenAI and DuckDuckGo have also expressed interest in buying Chrome, perhaps as a distress sale if it's forced to happen. I just think in a sense, you can't look the other way when there's 3.5 billion Chrome users. I think there are 8 billion people on the planet. So, the motivation is there. I just don't know practically if it could happen with Perplexity.
This sounds assuming that Alan is right for a minute, why in God's name would Google want to do this deal? Because it's just setting up like not just some random competitor, but a serious competitor. And I think
there's a gun to their head.
Right. Well, I think they're going to look for somebody to give Google Chrome to who maybe is not such a threat and something that will just let it kind of sit off to the side.
Anyone who buys it's a threat instantly becomes a threat.
And also, this is a very Gordon Gekko moment, right? You don't know. There are ways you could structure a deal behind this. It may be Perplexity buying it with a bunch of investments lined up in them. think about Microsoft's investment in OpenAI or something like that, where someone else, not just Perplexity, but through Perplexity, could step in and have a pretty amazing deal.
Maybe Google
The
themselves.
other reaction I had to this, Alan, is this seemed to me it could backfire on Perplexity. This could start the bidding war for
Could be.
Chrome too, and put them out of the
Well,
league for it.
What
So I
I
would also
think is
look at that.
interesting
Hold
here
on, let
is
Garima go. Yeah, Garima.
what I think is interesting here is two things. Keeping aside, the speculations, there are two things which will happen from this point onwards. One is people are already talking about the AI browser race, and we have touched upon that part, right? How the traffic, how the data, how the monetization, also how the integration of AI into browsers would kind of steer new investments, right? So the browsers are not only an application anymore, it becomes a platform for AI agents and doing stuff, right? So a lot of privacy direction of how web will be enabled by AI is kind of in making. So somebody who's investing or has an intention of investing into this space is also clearly indicating that they are setting the direction for web AI, for example, right? So it's more than what you see on the surface, and there is a lot more to be discussed from a technology perspective, because at the core people can question what this is an open source based on Chromium, right? So why should we pay this $1 billion for that, right? So it's not only data war, it's also like setting the direction for the next web AI and how that will shape up.
I'll go a step further, and maybe Perplexity is somebody else's stalking horse, and somebody who wants this, but Google wouldn't sell it to them. So now I'll put Perplexity in there. We'll throw some cash their way. And then, after the deal is done, 6 months later, Perplexity is picked up by, who knows, John's Point, Apple, or somebody, but maybe it's a more deliberate strategy.
That's my Gordon Gekko strategy. Yes, agreed.
It is good.
Agreed.
But here's another thing I
Unintended.
wanted to mention, and that is, Chrome became the winner of the browser wars. And these browser wars have been going on almost since the internet went commercial. Netscape to Internet Explorer to Mozilla, then Chrome. Microsoft's been trying to get back into it ever since. I feel like I'm watching the Wacky Racers on the Saturday morning TV, right? Penelope Pitstop, Dick Dastardly. Remember that show? But you got to be of a certain age. But anyway, the fact of the matter is the next stop on the browser war race circuit is not Monte Carlo, but it's the AI browser, right? Perplexity has an AI browser already. I think it's available to their highest tier customer. Yep. OpenAI, I'm on the waiting list for whenever that comes out. I think others, right? Are we about to see the next iteration of the browser wars? And Perplexity is looking to, take a what do they call it in horse racing when you have a 1 and a 1A in a race, two horses in the same stable?
Mhm.
And maybe that's the play here.
I don't know. I'm not enjoying my AI browsing experience any more than my existing browser experience. Now I feel like I'm
I don't think this next generation of AI browsers is really. I don't know if you've played with it yet. I don't know if any of us have, unless I think you got to be paying Perplexity some good money to use their browser. But it's supposed to be a very different experience.
Well, what I've seen so far is, especially from Google, is basically annoying summarizations of things that are now getting in the way of the ads that I can't get through to get to what I actually wanted to see in the first place. So I'm just kind of shaking my head at the whole thing.
Well, we're gonna clearly know what's gonna happen soon, because I think this month the judge who's looking at this case is going to decide whether Chrome has to be divested from Google. So it's going to happen any day, and there might be a bidding war. Maybe Perplexity is just trying to get to the front of the line.
John, that's naive. That's naive, John. this is going to have
That's
to
you're not
be
the first person to call me naive.
no, but this is look, anything like Google having to divest itself of Chrome is going to go right up to the big man. And he'll make this
Oh, wow. I
decision.
see where this is going. Okay.
Maybe he'll take 15%, 20%. But courts don't get to make these decisions anymore in this country.
Okay. Gotcha. I stand corrected. Sorry.
So wait, will there be will Google just make a trip to Mar-a-Lago and make the whole thing go away? Is that what you're saying?
It worked for Intel.
They got to wait in line behind Vuitton, NVIDIA, AMD,
It worked for
Apple.
Intel. It worked for NVIDIA. Why won't it work for Google?
Who knows?
This reminds me of a story. When I was a young boy, my grandfather, rest his soul, my grandfather was a general contractor in New York City. And the biggest building project in New York City in the early to mid 60s was the New York World's Fair. And quite truthfully, I'm too young. I might have been there as a toddler, but I don't remember. But I think it was like 63, 64, 65 maybe, Mike.
65 was the World's Fair.
Yeah, something there. My father worked there on some side gigs during his railroad days. They were paying good money for anybody.
They were paying good money. My grandfather did a lot of construction there. But, the World's Fair was run by a guy named Robert Moses. And he's the subject of a great book by Robert Caro, like The Master Builder or something. Robert Moses.
The Power Broker. I finished reading it. It's 1,300 pages.
Yeah, amazing story, but true story. The man built all the bridges and tunnels, all the highways, all the parks, kicked the Dodgers out of Brooklyn and everything else, and the Giants out of New York. But my grandfather used to tell me that in order to get any projects at the World's Fair, you used to have to go to Belmont Park, which wasn't just a racetrack. There was a park there. And that's where Robert Moses had an office, and his brother was there. And you had to bring the brother a suitcase of money. And then you would get your contract signed. And that's really how it worked in New York in those days. I don't know how different things are now.
Now today you just go find a union guy in a bar. But that's a separate story. I think it's interesting you bring all this up. I was just in an antique store a couple of weeks ago, and I bought a little bowl from the World's Fair from 1964. So it has a little souvenir kind of thing. So it's floating around the back.
Very interesting. But nevertheless, look, the point is, stranger things have happened. And in a world where you can make deals like this, and the old rules don't seem to apply, this could happen. It could happen. We'll see.
Never say never.
Never say never. All right, let's take a break. I mentioned Intel. We're going to come back and talk more about that. You're watching Techstrong Gang.
SecurityBoulevard.com is the leading resource for news, analysis, and education on challenges facing the cybersecurity industry. SecurityBoulevard.com covers all aspects of cybersecurity, including data security, DevSecOps, cloud security, application security, network security, security threats, and more. SecurityBoulevard.com has the largest selection of security content, featuring breaking news, blog posts, podcasts, and more. Visit www.securityboulevard.com to learn more. SecurityBoulevard.com, home of Security Bloggers Network.
All right, folks, we're back, and our third segment deals with, another issue involving CEOs and the president. The CEO of Intel apparently went to see the president, bended the proverbial knee, and suddenly everybody's all good with each other. Alan, we were talking about this in a show earlier this week, but what do you make of all this?
What do I make of all this? You don't really want to know, do you? Again, we live in interesting times, right? Mitchell, I think you said it when we discussed this earlier the week that, hey, if the Intel CEO goes there with some 24-karat gold kind of bauble or something, you could probably get this undone. Well,
Tim Cook style. Yes.
Yeah, I guess that's what happened. But it's such a this is such a signature moment of the insanity that we're living in. That Monday we spoke about how the president, who has inserted himself as the de facto manager of our high-tech industry, because of course he knows better than any of these people do, on Monday said the man must resign immediately. Immediately, thank you very much, or whatever, however he ends his fiats. And then, as John wrote, he went, he brought whatever he brought to him. I don't know if it was a suitcase of cash, a la Robert Moses, or a 24-karat bauble, or something, or some kind of deal. And now all of a sudden, what a fine gentleman this Intel CEO is. And we may laugh. I'm sorry, go ahead, Mitch.
It reminds me, not to make this, the day I ascended the mountain to get, a word of wisdom from Alan Shimel. But I recall back years ago, you said something to me that I still remember today. And it went something like, today's golden child is tomorrow's blank head.
Yeah.
It's very much and
this was reversed. He was the head.
Way.
Now he's the golden child.
Now he's back, the golden child again. So how did we finish the last segment? Never say never.
Yeah.
Seems like
that's where we're at.
But here's the thing. Of course, one may want to ask, well, what deal was made here? What deal was made here that allowed this? That this just changed everything. And now I have another theory. I was talking about it because, by the way, when I saw your article, John, I sent it to our friend Jack Polar, he was so dead set how this Intel CEO was so guilty, and Trump was doing the right thing. And of course, in grand
that's a little harsh, but okay.
Well,
pot calling the kettle black.
In apologetic manner, he said, well, these guys know better than us. I don't think they know better than us. I learned that lesson in my career. Don't assume people know better than you, because they don't, often, more than often. So, but anyway, here's my theory.
Well, there's an announcement is going to come. I mean, Trump can't help himself. What he wrote on Truth Social was that Mr. Tan and my cabinet members are going to spend time together and bring suggestions to me during the next week. So we will hear how they bend at the knee, just as Apple did when they added $100 billion.
How much El Duce or douche or whatever wets his beak?
So
right?
I'm trying to figure out, though, how the hell all this got started, because as far as I can tell, Tom Cotton, or the senator from Arkansas, teed off on this. Trump picked up on it. Tom Cotton knows.
I believe he's from Nebraska.
No, I believe he's from
Arkansas.
Oh, he is from Arkansas. Yeah. Well, that explains things.
And
there you go, blaming Nebraska again.
Don't blame Nebraska.
And what I'm trying to figure out is who put this bug in Tom Cotton's ear, who is not known for A, being the brightest bulb in the Senate, and B, wouldn't know a semiconductor from a potato chip. So what the hell, where did this all start, John? Did anybody talk about it?
Probably, it could have been one of the minions of the Trump administration. Could have been a competitor, for all we know. I mean, Jesus
the
Christ.
Heritage Foundation.
It's just like Trump deals in gossip, innuendo, rumors, conspiracies. You mention anything, float anything to him, he'll run with it. And he assumes this guy, Bhutan, is a spy, and then he decides, he's a very successful, nice businessman after he meets him. Has Trump or Cotton ever used? Do they use computers at all? Have they ever used them? I know Trump hasn't. Anyway, I'll stop.
So clearly somebody put a bug in Tom Cotton's ear. Now, did they do that because they have motivation to do that? Was it a competitor? Was it somebody sitting on the board who was arguing with the CEO of this thing? I mean, this is worthy some additional investigation.
That's actually, Mike, that's a very interesting point you make about the board, because the Intel board is a disaster. I mean, I don't think there's any debate over that.
It's
It's
a
a
viper's
viper's face.
pit.
And you know what? Tan kind of fed off through there to get rid of Gelsinger, and maybe some people have turned on him. It's just self-feeding frenzy. It's this company, so you watch your back.
I feel
Well,
like
let
I
me-
should
let me-
rip off my mask and it's Pat Gelsinger here.
Pat Gelsinger.
Me all along.
So let
Phantom.
me make up a scenario. I don't think it's the truth, but it's in the realm of possibility. You can imagine someone going to Trump or whoever and saying, you know what, Intel just needs to be knocked down a peg and needs to come to us with a hat in hand and make a deal. So hey, who can do that? Tom Cotton, you issue a memo, giving them the business, and I'll whack on it on Truth Social and pump it up, and guess who's going to be come knocking on our door in a day or two.
Well,
Maybe something like that. Maybe it was intentional. Who knows?
Mitch, I wouldn't put it past these brilliant gentlemen.
I think it would be a lot simpler just to make a phone call to accomplish that goal.
I don't
No,
think.
I think Tom
that's the
Cotton was
MO.
looking. I think Tom Cotton got his pound of flesh in terms of PR and his bona fides in the MAGA crusade. But that being said, here's the real truth, guys. Intel is too big to fail.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I think someone got a hold of Trump and said, hey, bucko, you keep talking in Truth Social like that, you're going to drive Intel down, and then we don't have an American manufacturer. And that's pretty funny that Trump would get behind the company because they're too big to fail. Because I remember him having an awful big mouth when they bailed out the banks that were too big to fail in the recession. But sitting in the big chair, he does the same thing.
Yeah. If he would have done it, bailed him out, he wouldn't have a problem with it.
This is a radical thought, but what happens one day when Intel wakes up and says, this is just a little too much noise for me, and we're just going to move this whole thing to Taiwan or somewhere else?
I don't think they'll do it. Well, but here's another thing. I read an article, one of the former Intel CEOs, and I don't remember who now, not Gordon.
You say Craig Barrett, perhaps?
Craig Barrett.
Yeah.
Craig Barrett.
I know. I saw that story. Yeah.
Put out some information that, look, he thinks, and you don't break Intel up, number one. Number two, Intel needs about $40 billion to get competitive quick and right the ship right there. But that Intel is basically an American institution and worthy. And I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see the U.S. taking a golden share in Intel. This way Donald can run it day to day as he likes, because who knows better than him? And Intel gets $40 billion. You heard it here first.
There you go.
Where's the Ayakoka when I need him? Come on, man.
Oh, jeez.
Doing somersaults, I'm sure.
Lest I say Gordon Gecko again, but anyway, that's
But it is interesting, and we can't blame this on AI, but the news cycle here of Monday to we recorded this on Wednesday. How quickly these things are, but it's that kind of chaos and uncertainty that I think winds up bringing this whole thing down. Because industry and business, it doesn't do well with that kind of yo-yoing. My two cents.
I think it's such a yo-yo they're ignoring it. Well, maybe they don't ignore the initial yank of Intel stock takes a drop, but at some point it kind of becomes noise.
So
Yeah,
I guess
I think there are more long-term consequences for this, like moving beyond the controversy and the political, stakeholder alignment and all that. I think it also is dangerous for trust, as well as commitment towards the people who are actually working for emerging technology. So you can't compromise the trust and the commitment, otherwise you will fall short of the talent pool you have.
To me, it all sounds like yahoos and yo-yos. Gonna be fun.
Buckle in, guys. We're in for a rough trip. All right. I think that's going to do it for us on the gang today. I know it was a little disjointed. We had Daniel in here on Signal earlier and then covered our normal stuff. Garima, John, Mitch, and Mike, thanks for joining. We hope you've enjoyed this. Again, Futurum Signal is coming out on August 20th. Check that out. You can read all about it on my article, which should be live now, techstrong.ai. And we'll be back tomorrow. Who knows what'll happen by then? Only the shadow knows, I guess, but we'll find out. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day. We're out.